So I saw this story today, and it's a story that's been simmering and been discussed a lot in the last 2 weeks on the interweb. And it doesn't really mean anything because Tony Romo makes $17 million a year guaranteed. But Andrew Marchand, on his podcast, a New York Post radio TV critic, media critic, had said that CBS was getting concerned about Tony Romo's sort of unconventional style, undisciplined style. And there's been slippage with Tony Romo. And I thought, for no other reason than, because I don't talk a lot of media, but I've been doing this for 30 years, and I thought, this is an interesting thing, I think, for the audience. It's kind of instructive. So when you get out of the NFL or NBA or any sport, but let's talk NFL and Tony Romo, who I think does a fine job. I've never really bought into the hype. I thought predicting plays was kind of silly and overrated. It doesn't mean anything. The media freaked out. I don't care. That's not why I watch you to predict plays. I look for insight that I wouldn't get, interviews I wouldn't get, information I wouldn't get elsewhere. So, and that's why I think Greg Olson, by the way, is crushing at Fox. So when you first get out of the league, your first year or two, you're generally the most familiar with the league. But the NFL, two things are happening. Number one, there's younger general managers in the NFL, and they are trading players without a concern. And if you look at the average NFL career, which is about 4 years, the league turns over about every 3 to 4 years. So a guy like Romo can come out of football, have a real understanding of the personnel, the rosters, the coordinators, and then all of a sudden some of those coordinators leave, go to different places, go to college football, the rosters turn over 3 or 4 years later, and you really have to do your homework. And the knock on Romo, and I'll get to this more in a second, is that he doesn't really put the time in. So networks get really, really frustrated when they pay you a fortune, they put you on their number one event, and you're not prepared. So Romo makes $17 million a year. That's been reported. And if you consider that Jim Nantz talks for more than half of the broadcast, sideline reports, commercials, the game itself, Romo's probably talking for 25 minutes once a week. They want you to be really, really dialed in for that 25 minutes. I'm on the air 15 hours a week, ad-libbing with no game, just talking. You're going to make mistakes. Charles Barkley, by the way, doesn't follow half the league. When the Lakers made a acquisition or a trade recently for a wing from the Wizards, Shaq had never heard of him. He covers the NBA. So Shaq, Barkley, television's entertainment. Harry Carey was a legend. He was drunk on the air at various times. But football is different. You get 20 million viewers. It really is the most important broadcast, singular 3.5 hours weekly for networks. And if they're paying you $17 million and you're talking about 20 minutes a week, they want you to be dialed in. I always had this theory that, and I used this for years, when I would interview people and I was going to hire them, if I had lunch or coffee with them, I always asked them if they loved golf. Oh, I love golf. Do you love golf? And if they said yes, I wouldn't hire them. Because I always had this theory that as guys age, many of them get addicted to golf. They're on PGAtour.com. They're putting in the backyard. They're thinking about it at work. They're scheduling a trip to Scotland, and they lose sight of their other job. Romo wants to be on the tour. He literally wants to be on the tour. I mean, what's the first thing Aaron Rodgers does in the offseason? He goes and golfs. He loves it. Both, by the way, great golfers, especially Romo. But I've always felt like Tony Romo is one of those guys, and we all have somebody in our social circle like this. They got the golf bug. He's had it for 15 years. Tony wants to be on the PGA Tour, but he likes the paycheck at CBS. And I don't think he does a bad job. I think he's fine. I think initially Romo was overvalued with predicting plays. That's not why, I mean, if you did it once in a while, it'd be great, but that's not why I'm watching you. But when you're only talking about 20 minutes a week on the biggest broadcast for a network where they pay billions of dollars annually, they want you to be dialed in. And I'm never going to criticize somebody because they slip a word up or, mispronounce a name. Live TV is really easy for people who've never done it. Romo and Jim Nantz have producers in their ears and directors in their ears, and they've got action and they've got ads to read. It's not easy. But, I don't think when I listen to Greg Olson, he sounds like he's been studying for that 3 hours for 6 days. Romo sounds like sometimes, and he's entertaining, he's winging it. And again, I think Barkley and Shaq wing it. But the NFL is different, and people love Barkley and Shaq. But it's the NBA. There's 82 games. It just doesn't matter. They're on the air for hours every week. Nobody's losing any sleep if they don't know something. I mean, again, they make fun of Barkley not knowing players in the NBA. But those NFL windows, man, those analyst jobs, those networks don't want to pay those guys $17 million a year. So they sit there with a microscope, and you make a mistake or they think you're not putting in the work, they're going to leak stuff. This stuff gets out. By the way, Marchand said CBS attempted an intervention. That only gets out because CBS wants it out. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Romo's agent calls CBS and asks for CBS to release a statement denying the report. Wouldn't shock me. Before I get to Nick Wright, because we'll debate this story, Nick has a belief that when LeBron James breaks Kareem AbdulJabbars' all-time NBA scoring record, that we really aren't giving it its just due, that we're not discussing it, that we're not giving it the momentous appreciation that it deserves. And I think it's not because we don't respect LeBron James. I have felt this with Brady and LeBron the last several years. I believe they've been so great for so long, there is fatigue. And part of Michael Jordan's popularity is that he left the sport and returned. So his career had multiple stories. College Michael, early can't beat the Pistons Celtics Michael, gets Pippen, becomes the king. Baseball, returns, loses to Orlando, eventually wins 3 more, then breaks up, see ya, Wizards. The book had multiple chapters. LeBron didn't have a college career. LeBron was great very quickly. LeBron changed a couple teams, but he's been the best player arguably for 15 years in the league. There isn't this arc, these disappearances, baseball, return, different story arc in Chicago, battling constantly with his GM. Basically, LeBron's been great for 15 years. He's changed teams, but finals. Once he started getting to him, he went back to him for almost a decade straight. And so there hasn't been a lot of swings to LeBron's career. Great early, great middle with titles, still great with one title with the dysfunctional Lakers. And I felt this with Brady. Brady was great early. There was a gap when he didn't win championships. He was still great. And then he was great late in New England. And he was really great in Tampa. And then he retires. Where are the swings, the story arcs? Brett Favre was problem early. Then he was great. Pushed out by Aaron. Goes to the Jets. Goes to the Vikings. There's a lot of arcs. There's a lot of different storylines. I think LeBron and Brady were so great early and so great often. The news cycle, we're always looking for the new thing, the exciting thing, the controversial thing. It's not intentional. It's the reality of John Morant, Zion Williamson, Josh Allen. It's new. Everybody likes new. The new restaurant in town, the new club. And I think when you're great early, great in the middle, great at the end. I mean, Tom Brady set 2 NFL records at 45 years old, pass attempts and pass completions. Is that, it's like when Martin Scorsese has a new movie. He was great early. He was great with Goodfellas. He was great with The Irishman. Everything's great. It's like Spielberg. When wasn't he great? Everything he puts out is phenomenal. So we don't talk about him as much. Doesn't mean I don't think Spielberg is one of the most remarkable creative geniuses in the history of Hollywood. But when Quentin Tarantino came out, it was like he got 10 times the press. He was new. He was unique. Pulp Fiction. Who is this guy? So not that anybody's a victim, Brady, LeBron, Spielberg, of their success, but the media gets bored, and I'm guilty of it too.